Right. Good morning. I have
Good
Renee
morning.
Brandies here. My name is Holly Schmidt. I'm with Magnolia Homes and Land, and Renee is visiting us today. She is one of my greatest people in my life. She
I
has
love it.
just such a great heart, and I'm super excited to dive in here. So, Renee came to Magnolia 3 years ago. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
July.
All right, awesome. So, 3 years ago, Renee decided to take a leap into real estate, has proven that she's one of the very best realtors representing her buyers and sellers in just an amazing, compassionate, hardcore negotiating kind of way. And I know that they love you just as much as I do, Renee.
And I have to
Thank
thank you for that.
Aw, thanks. Thanks for being here with me today.
Mhm.
So let's kind of dive in. You started in sort of the interior design industry, right?
Yeah, so our family has Castle Carpets and Interiors on 200. We've been there for 33 years, and it's a family business. We do anything from floors to window treatments, shutters, things like that.
All the things.
Yeah. So it kind of it gives us a lot of flexibility and space for family. We have kids that are in sports, we have little ones. And so it kind of what rolled me into real estate as well as you and your mentorship. I think you said when before I was a realtor, you're like, you'd be a good real estate agent. And I,
Because when
uh-huh,
I mean, and I think that as you have branched, like when
hmm
you come across an agent that you're like, this is a damn good agent, right? You
hmm
just feel it. And you
you know,
definitely, yeah, yep, I
hmm
knew.
you knew.
Yes, I knew.
And I'm so thankful that we crossed paths and you kind of guided me through that, through a lot of things, personal and business wise.
Ditto, girl.
So yeah, now here we are.
Ditto.
hmm
So Miss Jana started the business 33 years ago,
hmm
right? She comes from sort of a construction
hmm
in her family. And that is your bonus mom,
Yeah,
right? Right? We'll call her that. She is your mother-in-law.
she
And
calls herself my mother in love.
there, I love that. I love that. I could
And
see
that's
that.
exactly what she is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. She's
Very hard worker. So we both have that same common um, personality. We're just go getters, hustlers.
yep, strong work ethic.
hmm
I love that.
But really, too, I think what's important is we've always standed on our faith, really leaned into that. Through hard times, good times, we always have been very strong in our faith. And that was something else we had in common. So it was very organic, natural that
Yes.
we work together and we work well together. A lot of people are like, how do you work with your husband and your mother in law? And actually, it's so easy. I couldn't ask for a better boss on that side
Right.
of business.
Just a good family knit.
hmm
We're going to kind of get into Renee's story, but recently we had a situation where I had a house that was
hmm
needing some new flooring, and Castle really quarterbacked that for us. And I was working with Renee's brother-in-law, who had kind of stepped in, and
hmm
it's just really admirable the way that that family really has banded together and
Yeah.
making things happen,
hmm
and taking things to the next level. I think that you brought up faith, and for me, I was in a really dark place in my life, and I went to Church of Hope, where Renee is
hmm
a member. Is that how
Yeah.
they? Okay. And Miss Janice is really involved in the church too, and she was just so welcoming and just so sincere
hmm
and just very forthcoming with her stories, and it was just very refreshing to because
hmm
I mean to me that's what JC looks like.
Yeah.
Is kind of that life isn't always going to be great, and I've
Right.
been there. Let's kind of go through this together,
hmm
and so for me that was my first real connection with Janice, and I felt like it was very powerful. So
I remember that day. She actually had reached out to me and she said, Holly was here. And I was like, oh, good. Give her a big squeeze.
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew because, unfortunately, sometimes we get very comfortable in our faith and we kind of drift. And then something happens, life happens, and you're back knocking on the door like, hey,
Help me.
yeah,
Help.
yeah, I'm here, please, right?
Yes.
So, and I think that's been true throughout my journey, and with faith. And the last few years, I definitely have had to cling to my faith and just really use it as strength, and also being able to inspire others to be able to be comfortable in that space. We've kind of adopted families all over that are now part of our church family as well. And
I love that.
It's good because we all have something else to connect with other than trials, tribulations, life. It's something that we can grow together with faith, but it kind of streams out business wise too.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, in real estate, I think that one of our biggest things here at Magnolia that
Hmm.
we talk about is the relationship. So,
Hmm.
yes, transactionally, we know that we're in a business transaction, but ultimately, we're sharing sometimes really great chapters with people.
Hmm.
And sometimes we're sharing really low chapters, whether it's a death or a divorce, or
Hmm.
so the relationship is super important.
Right.
So, I think that that's important that you bring that up because it's on both sides of it, right?
Right. When people trust you and they feel comfortable to talk to you, I think, like you said, having that relationship is what makes good agents, good friends,
Right.
good family.
Right.
So,
And that dependability, right?
mhm,
So I'm not just here for whether it's a paycheck or whether it's to kiki,
right,
right? I'm
right.
here for the genuineness of being hands on deck and
Hmm.
let's get through this together. Let's get to the other side
Right.
in a personal or in a trial,
Hmm.
excuse me, or in a professional kind of setting. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
You check all those boxes, sis,
Uh,
all of them. Okay, so kind of take me. So you decided, like, hey, I'm going to go do this.
mhm.
You went and got your real estate license and
Yeah.
really kind of jumped
So
in.
I was actually working on it. And I loved the fact that it gave me a little more flexibility with my son at the time. And during the classes, I found out I was pregnant with our second boy, Harlow, and um, which was perfect in that time because it gave me, again, that flexibility for family and gave me some time to spend with them as well. But
And
also
kind of the
on the,
restructure, right?
hmm
Because your family was changing and
hmm
kind of restructuring that.
yeah, and so in December of 2022, we had Harlow, and he basically was like my sidekick, my assistant, if you will. He went on showings with me. I think he probably sold the houses better than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was such a joy. He was special, definitely. And then, we have our older son who plays football. And so Harlow's at the games, we're all at the games, which, again, real estate and having that family business, we get a little more flexibility to
Right.
be able to be present. And
And
I
that's at
know.
MCYFL,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And you guys, Renee's husband, Evan, he's a coach out there. And that kind of adopted some things for you too, like literally
Yeah.
adopted some things,
Right.
right?
So through that, we met some boys on the team that, just really needed to be loved on, mentored. So it started with us just picking them up and dropping them off. And then it was like they basically lived at our house other than going to the schoolhouse. And then probably a year ago, one of them has now does live with us full time. He is a great kid. He just needs extra care, extra love. So on any given day, I probably have 10 boys at my house, and they all loved on each other, loved on Harlow. He had 10 big brothers, if you will. And
Lots of
they
good
all,
energy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part, yeah, but boys will be boys. Um, and so, we've we were able to spend a lot of time with the kids in that manner because we work a lot, but then we also were able to, that's one thing we're all involved in. I'm the team mom as well, so it's all hands on deck at our house for the Pee Wee Vikings. And actually this year,
Go Vikings.
yeah, yeah, we just won our first round of the playoffs,
Nice.
right? All year long, we haven't had one team score a touchdown on us.
Hey,
Yeah.
that means the defensive
Not
side
to
is doing
brag
their
about
job.
them, but I'm super proud because we have come a long way. These boys have played together for about 3 years now.
Love that.
And just seeing them, they started out like running into each other, and now they are. I think they're the best, but I could be biased.
They're
as well.
vibing.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
understand the assignment.
Yeah,
And that's growth, right?
Right. I call them the front yard football team because literally we always have about 10 kids at our house, and they're always, I don't know how they don't get sick of it. They go to practice, they come home, and they play in our yard. And it's nonstop, but we enjoy it. I love watching them grow. We also drag all of them to church on Sunday, and it's great. Greg Paquin is there, and he loves seeing all of them, and
Love
it's
that.
just a good time. Family is so important to us. Um, this year in July or June 20th, we had something that just changed our lives forever and shook us to our core. Our youngest son, Harlow, had an accidental drowning, and unfortunately, all those boys were there to experience it and witness it. And like I said, that is their brother as well. And we really had to lean on God with this.
Right.
He battled for 30 days at Shands, and he had great care. Like Harlow, he was such a fighter. And unfortunately, on July 28th, he gained his wings to heaven. And so I know he's in a safe space now, but it's something that no one should have to endure.
The heartbreak, right?
Right.
Right. The overall just, and I remember that text, I got that text. We were super excited. We were having our ribbon cutting. Yeah, ribbon cutting here. And Renee's got some really great community contacts, and the mayor was here. And I got a text at, I think it was like 5 o'clock in the morning from Renee's husband, Evan. And he just kind of let me know what was going on. And I just sat on the edge of my bed, like, no way. And just, kind of prayed it out. And when we showed up here, it was really tough. And not just for me. I mean, it was tough for all of us under this roof to be excited, but to know that one of us was hurting so bad, So, we banded together. We had the CEP here. And I mean, with tears in our eyes, we were all, very community. We were praying our hearts out for Harlow, and just hoping that, tomorrow was going to be okay, that everything,
Right.
This is definitely going to be an emotional podcast. So I'm okay.
I'm really trying to hold it together.
I'm fine. You're fine. We're all fine. But yeah, that was a really tough day, to know.
It's a nightmare that you hope that you're going to wake up from. And I'm so grateful for my Magnolia family. I mean, everyone was bringing food, door dashing. Poor Evan and I, not poor Evan, I mean, it wasn't about us, but I think we ate more Chick-fil-A than we have in our entire life, just because that was what was available to us at the Shands. And being in that hospital, I had a lot of time to sit and just reflect. And of course, you start researching and you find out that, and everyone says it, that is a part of this club no one wants to be a part of, is I didn't know that the statistics were that significant.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
So I've told you before, and so everyone knows exactly. Accidental drownings is the number one cause of death for children under the age of 4.
Which is mind blowing. Like when you told me that statistic, I was like, no way.
Right.
No way.
And this has been for years and years. In state of Florida, we're number 1 for that.
That's crazy.
In the nation every year. It's number 2 for the ages 5 to 12. And, you hear so much that goes on in the news. And, that's something that, or even just social media, it's something that it's not talked about.
Agreed.
And then once you're living that story, then people are coming out like, hey, I have a cousin. Then I think people feel more comfortable to talk about it.
Relatability, right? And understand. I think sometimes in life we don't know, like we were talking, kind of going back to the Jana situation and her, you don't know what somebody's going through until you know,
right?
So absolutely. They have that ability to connect with you.
I had, so we were moved from Shands when we knew that the life that Harlow had lived would have been technology dependent. There was severe brain damage. So Evan and I both agreed that if we want Harlow to live, to make it, and if it's not going to be Harlow and the way he would live life, we don't want him to be living on a breathing machine or a G tube, getting fed that way. So he fought and fought and fought, and I think we could kind of see the change in the care and the numbers. And so we had to make the very hard decision to move him to Hospice of Marion County, which is now another part of my family. They were amazing. They loved on us so much. And there was a nurse there who she's still texts me to this day, and I'm so grateful for her. Her name is actually QJ, which is also the name of my adopted boy.
So some similar. And we've got
Yeah,
EJ
when
and
she said that, I was like, "Whoa, I have a QJ." And she said, "Renee, this pain won't be wasted, and you're gonna use it. And it's hard to even think on how you can find the good in this, but something will come of this that you'll look back and you'll just see God in it, and you'll see Harlow in it." And
I remember her having that conversation.
mhm,
And that was a tough one. I mean, I had a knot in my throat like the size of Mount Everest trying
mhm.
to swallow it when she was having
And
that
I
conversation.
even still have those moments. I think when you're grieving, there's so many layers to this onion, right? And you're just trying to peel them back, and then you find something else that or a picture or a song, things that just kind of it breaks you at that
Provoke.
moment. And no one grieves at the same time. So I'm trying to be strong for my 10-year-old at the same time as my husband, and we're all grieving at different times.
Right. And I'm
Um,
sure like the mountains and valleys of it
mhm.
come differently for everyone too.
Yeah, sure. So we started at Faithfully Guided, which is a Christian-based therapy here in Ocala, and they're amazing. Actually, she actually goes to our church as well. So the way that this accident has brought a lot of us together, closer than we've ever been. One of my good friends said, "Renee, I've seen people praying that have never prayed before because of Harlow." And that's not lost on my heart. That unfortunately, like I said, trials and tragedies brings people closer and closer to God.
Right.
So through this, we've started Harlow's Helping Hands, which you've been right there with me, forcing me to do
Well,
these podcasts and these videos.
well, let's kind of circle back just for a second. So,
Mhm.
when Harlow was transferred, right? I remember you sharing such a heartfelt story with me from Shands to hospice. So, hospice doesn't usually take peds, right?
Right.
Or a patient of his age. And Renee and Evan were commuting back and forth to Gainesville along with family every day, trying to kind of juggle the football and, all the
Hmm.
things that, your life has. And there was some medication. So walk us through the medication and kind of what that Shan situation, because Shan's was a blessing too, right?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, though, we do have a shortage of some medications, and this one was one that Harlow needed to. At one point, he was having seizures, and this medicine was preventing those. And Shan's was they were in a critical shortage. So at this point, they really have to, who can this help for a long term
Mm.
um, time frame, if you will. And this, we got a call from our pastor, Mark, and he said, "You'll never believe this. I had a call from the director of Marion County Hospice, and she said I was watching the service online, and I heard the story because our church has just been praying and updating our church family as well on it. And
JC definitely had like a main line from Ocala Marion County, like straight to.
mainline, that was,
Yeah.
yeah. That's funny. The nurse QJ, she would always say, "I got him on the main line. I got Harlow on the main line." And so the director said she was watching the service online, and she heard about Harlow's story. And she told her husband, they were on a vacation. She said, "I feel like the Lord's telling me I need to make space for that little boy, and he needs to get his family and all back home." And so when they came to us to talk about our next steps in Harlow's care, we agreed that that wasn't his life, and we knew we'll see him again. So we're gonna make this hard decision and get him back home and let him make that transition peacefully around family, because also in ICU you can only have one parent and one visitor at a time, and they were gracious to allow Evan and I to stay there for the 28 days we stayed every night. And they allowed us to do that. So the medicine that they were running critically short on, hospice had.
In
And
abundance, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and she said maybe they don't have any because we have a lot of it.
Right.
And that was, it was, there were signs all over the place that God had his hand in it. And that was one that was just kind of solidified and made me feel better about our decision, because as a parent, you're like, I'm going to go to the end of the earth. I'm calling doctors in Chicago. I'm looking up hyperbaric chamber treatments. I'm just so, you want to do whatever you can.
Right.
And I feel like those little things made me feel a little bit better. Like, you're making the right decision. And even though the doctors and the nurses are telling you that, you still in your heart are like, I'm going to fight until there's nothing left.
Yeah. That mama bear side, right?
Right. And so we were transferred to hospice, and it's the way this has gone full circle. We actually at Castle just got done remodeling this facility, and so when they said that's where we were going, Davis, it's where we went, and
In
we
a
were like,
beautiful facility.
we knew exactly where it was because
Right.
we just finished that. For Castle, we just did the floors and the windows and stuff in there, and so it was just kind of full circle. She came in and prayed. Pastor Mark stopped by. Everyone has, had their hand in it, and it was tough. It's still tough. Like, it's a wound that I don't think ever heals. Um, then you're going through things that you don't think about until you're living it, like planning a funeral for your 18-month-old,
Right.
designing a headstone. Those are things that I never want to have to do.
Right. I
But
don't
I
think
had
we're
to.
wired that way. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, as mom says, we're splitting cells for,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we're wired to, for our child to precede us in
Mm-hmm.
that transition.
Yeah, sure.
So then when we have to go through it, it's very uncharted waters, it's
Yeah.
very, um, unplanned. It's, you don't know really how am I going to get through this? And I think that you have been a pillar, to so many, to our community and to your family. I know your Magnolia family, and just how strong you've been in your faith, and I just admire the heck out of you for. And I think that, I mean, for me personally, I never talked to God so much in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
as we started this podcast, we talked about, kind of like the help me after we,
Mm-hmm.
slip back. But I think that, as you mentioned, tragedy brings us closer because you're
Mm-hmm.
able to have that conversation, and you have been such an example of what faith looks like. You face this uncharted water, you face this storm,
Mm-hmm.
and just showed up with such love for and hope, like
Yeah.
no matter what was going to happen, you were going to see it through, and you knew that you had JC behind you and it was going to be okay.
Yeah. I don't know how some folks can do it without faith, because for me, it gives me a lot of hope. I think that was the perfect word you just used, is hope. And knowing that Harlow is okay, he is in a safe space, and he's healed and he's whole again. And I'm sure my grandfather and my cousin were there at the gates, and
I was like, come on, little buddy.
yeah, my husband made a joke that his cousin never really, he had this four-wheeler and he never finished it. It was always in pieces, or he was always doing something to it. And I said, do you think Kyle's seen Harlow? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He said, I think they're probably riding around on the golf cart or the four-wheeler. And
Because that was one of Harlow's favorite things, right? The golf cart, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's actually finished. And it was, little things like that are kind of comforting to know that, he's not alone, and he's, I think we hurt, and he's probably like running around, right? But that does give me a lot of comfort, and without faith, I would be so lost. And not that I don't have my moments where I feel very lost or hurt,
Wondering how I'm going to get through the next. Yeah, I get it.
because a lot of it too is, I have a 10-year-old, and he had to experience something that was terrible, and that was his brother, and that was his world. So I'll not only have to be strong for myself, but for my son, for my husband, my mom, our whole family,
Right.
really. we all lean on each other and we all have those moments. But I think where we stand strong is on our faith, and that's where we can always circle back to, if you will, and really try to just navigate, navigating every day, one day at a time. That was something, my uncle said is, it's not a, it's not a race, it'll be slow, and just be slow and steady and take one day at a time, one moment at a time.
You eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Right. And it's okay not to be okay. And,
it's not okay, but it's going to be all right.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're just taking it one day at a time, but we have found a lot of solace in knowing that if we can help one person, one child, one caregiver know, the importance of knowing CPR,
we're here
water
for
safety.
Yeah.
These are things that should be talked about. I think every house in our neighborhood has a pool, if not every other one.
Yeah,
and,
for sure. And that's kind of was the development, right? So when this tragedy struck, we were kind of all in a space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Renee was, just keeping things together in ICU and, trying to figure out what was going on. But even then, knowing that this isn't going to be the end of this story, right? I'm going to pick up the ball and I'm going to continue to carry it in his name. And that's exactly what you did. Right. So you created Harlow's Helping Hands. And that's when, kind of the research started, was all of these astonishing statistics on drownings. And it was kind of mind blowing. And Renee, and the heart that she is, said, how can I prevent this? How can I stop another family from potentially enduring what I've had, what my family has had to endure? And walk us through that. Take us through my very favorite nonprofit, but walk us through it.
Yeah. So again, you have a lot of time sitting in that room and going through all of these statistics and knowing, like, I hear this a lot, is I wish I knew. I wish I knew that statistic before I was sitting here. And when I read that, I was like, that's exactly what I said as well. So, we started really, I think we found a lot of healing in trying to navigate that. We're new to foundations, or, this is our first and only one. And there's a lot of layers to that as well. And, we got in contact with the Ocala Community Foundation, and they really helped a lot with setting up what we needed to be successful and to bring awareness to that accidental drownings
and kind of give you the boost in that,
Right. And of course, our community had a lot of support as well. So we actually, our very first event is November 9th, and you'll be there too.
I will.
We're all going to get certified in CPR because we know that is, life-saving for these kids that this tragedy happens to, or even any cardiac arrest. And so that's what drowning is. The child will go into cardiac arrest, and it's the lack of oxygen, right? And then the brain damage sets in, and these are things that can be prevented with CPR. There's a lot of other things I found throughout this National Alliance of Drowning Prevention. They're a foundation also that is a big umbrella for these smaller ones that are not in every community. So they kind of help guide with information, statistics, and different water safety companies like pool fences, pool alarms, gates. They get you in contact with the people that are boots on the ground for this. Right. And so we're still learning. There's a lot that goes into it, but I'm grateful that I have the folks around me to push me, because sometimes you just want to lay in bed. You don't want to even, navigate that. You go through moments where one day you're strong, and the next day it's a little harder to talk about drowning.
Right.
And so with Harlow's Helping Hands, I've found solace in knowing that we can prevent this. It's 100% preventable, and we just have to bring awareness, do what we can to let people know that like myself, I said that I've heard about, I've heard of other kids or things, folks drowning, and you just think that could never be me. That wouldn't happen to us, um, until it does, and then it's heart wrenching. It's
Life changing.
yes, absolutely.
Right, right. Life
There's
changing.
nothing that, and you're just all the questions of I wish I would have done this, or I wish we would have had this. But statistically, 85% of drownings, um, there is someone, there's an adult right there. There's
Just happens so fast.
right,
It's just so quick.
right. And a lot of times it's, when it's not swim time. So someone is, we're doing yard work, it's not a swimming time. Think times like that are higher, um, are higher chances of accidental drownings.
And it makes sense, kind of here in the state of Florida with our climate and how hot it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And, it makes sense that would happen. Although
Mm-hmm.
the tragedy in itself,
Right.
doesn't make a whole lot of sense to.
Right. Sure. We've just tried to continue to allow Harlow to shine his light, um, and know that with our foundation that we can prevent this, and we will, and we'll continue to bring awareness to it, in hopes that no one else has to be sitting
Right.
on this side, a part of the club no one wants to be a part of. One mom told me that, and I was like, that's the best description of our club that we are in.
Right.
No one wants to be a part of this club.
But here we are.
Yeah.
Right.
And, if there was more awareness right here in our community, maybe this wouldn't have happened, but it's not lost on me that we will prevent some of these tragedies. We just have to continue to do what we're doing, even when it's hard. And yeah, just with your support, you're definitely a driver, and you've been kind of nudging me to do videos and
But get the word out, right? So
right.
I think that kind of brings up a great point. So Harlow Helping Hands is on social media platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can go give them a like and
Mm-hmm.
give them a follow to kind of keep up to date with some of the events and
Yeah.
some of the stuff. So Church of Hope is the next one, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the CPR training.
Right.
And then the next one is, the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But we are trying to plan an event. Renee, as a kid, remembers doing some swim stuff from was it from Eaton's to Gators?
We would start at Gator Joe's and swim to Eaton's Beach. We did a swimathon every year, and basically all the swimmers around from our high schools, swim clubs, they would all be involved in it, and it would raise money for the community swim clubs and things that they don't have a ton of funding. And so we did that every year, and it was always such a fun thing. I didn't necessarily swim across. I was on the jet skis, like lining the swimmers, right? I wish I could, but no, I wasn't the swimmer. But it was a good time. We landed at Eaton's Beach, and that's where we would eat and celebrate and, just raise money for our local community. And so, yeah, I threw the idea out there for you. I said, we got to navigate and see what that looks like.
Right.
That was probably 20 years ago. The lake is a little busier now. So we just have to find someone we can get in touch with.
Like a foot in the door, and I think we can make it happen.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we can make anything happen that we put our minds to, right?
Sure.
Well, listen, Renee, I appreciate you being here today. I think that you are more important than you realize. And although this story is very heartbreaking, I do feel like you have the power to change people's lives, and I don't just mean that from like a future situation. I know that the faith that I have seen by example in you and your entire family, for me, has brought me a little bit closer and created more of a conversation with JC. And I hate that we have found that in such a tragic situation. But just know that I love you. This community loves you. I think that during that time and even now, you carry such a great heart and such a great reputation. And it's not what you do, it's who you are.
I sure love you. And a lot of what I'm able to do is, with your leadership and your love. I just appreciate you so much.
I'll carry you across the finish line, girl, every time.
Let's go. I love you, and thank you so much.